I was probably 2 months away from just pulling the trigger and just going. I was starting to set things. I had a friend or two that was there, and I was going to just crash with them, and I was going to bartend and just figure it out. I was like, what do I have to lose? I'm just going to go figure it out. So before I did that, I had another friend who was living in Georgia, friend that I grew up with, her family had been living here for years. She said, hey, before you go all the way to the other side of the country and spend all that money in Hawaii, why don't you come stay with me for a week or two in Georgia and check out the film scene here because it's starting to really explode.
Hey y'all, I'm Lalita Gabriela Ballesteros, and this is Vocal Liberation, the world's best empowerment podcast. I have deep conversations with experts, celebrities, thought leaders, artists, and athletes so that we can step into our power, fearlessly be ourselves, and bravely do the work that we are really here to do in the world. Come on, y'all, let's dive in. We had originally met over through threads, and I had put out a question to people about looking for different cinematic recommendations. I wanted to broaden my palette and experience new films. And one of the movies that you had suggested was Punch Drunk Love. Mm-hmm. And that's actually how we met on Threads. So I'm curious, for those who maybe have never seen this movie, why don't you tell the world a little bit about this fantastic, if not very quirky film?
Yeah. I it's hard. I remember catching, I think, like part of it. I was home years and years ago, and I'm like midway through, it just caught my eye, and I just started watching it, and it was Adam Sandler, which was interesting. And as I continued to watch it, I realized it wasn't like a typical Adam Sandler movie. So I had me, and I was, get the year this came out, early 2000s, I believe, but this was before I was in the movie industry, filmmaking or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a very quirky. Paul Thomas Anderson, who's a very well-respected filmmaker, and he picked Adam Sandler in this role, which is like this dark, twisted comedy in a way. I find it very funny, but some people might not understand the humor in it. But it's just following this character, and kind of he meets a girl, and he's got all these kind of awkward habits, and he's got a big family of sisters that he's dealing with who are just tormenting him, and he works at just like some random factory. He's just like this average guy, but you can tell he's, I think, very much an introvert as well. And the filmmaking is really just what drew me in. It's just really professionally, perfectly made, in my opinion. There's a really great score, the colors, the cinematography, the camera framing. There's some really cool, just like long shots that just hold on characters doing action scenes. It was just interesting. It was just something that at the time I had seen it, just really never saw anything like it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I watched the film, I watched it from two lenses: the lens of someone who makes things, and then the lens of someone who's just an audience member. And
Right.
as an audience member, I had a really hard time watching it because it's intentionally anxiety producing. The protagonist is so anxious, and it's like being on this, and then they intentionally create these scenes, both musically and the way that they frame it, and like everything in specific scenes, in my opinion, is created to make you feel tense and anxious and like you're on the edge of something.
Right.
Almost like shrieking. When you have a high-pitched noise, it's like you're pushed up against the wall, you don't know where you're going, and then it just breaks. And from a creator standpoint, I found it fascinating. From an audience member, I had to breathe. Like I felt so anxious watching it. So I'm curious, what's your favorite scene in that film and why?
Holy smokes. I have so many favorite scenes.
Yeah, it looks like you think in stills. I research the people before I speak with them, and particularly on Threads, and I'll see people's commentary, and it's like you're always posting stills. So it's like you see the world, which makes sense as a director, in stills. Favorite scene?
Visual person, yeah. There's so many great, funny scenes. I love the scene. So I don't want to spoil it in case anyone who hears this or sees this wants to go out and now watch this movie. But he gets on this kick where he wants to collect and buy pudding because there's an offer that the companies. And so he's shopping for it and he's searching and he doesn't really know what he's searching for. And he's just trying to find these products. And it's the moment
The
that he
freaking
like,
flyer mile.
the moment he discovers what he thinks is a loophole and he looks around the store as if there were going to be a mass group of
Yeah.
people that were going to jump on this offer if he didn't do it first. It's just, I find it just so funny. And
Mhm.
another subtle scene that I really love is when he finally is about to get to his sister's house for the party. And you see him hesitant to walk through the front door, where he steps in, he hears the commotion, he steps back out. Then you see the door slightly open again where he's thinking about it, and then it shuts. And then he finally decides to come in, and he's just dreading. Oh man, I can go on. There's just so many really good scenes in that movie for me. Yeah.
And Adam Sandler has a very specific, like, I don't remember the scene from watching it, but I can remember he does this thing whenever when he's waiting, he does this thing where he goes like this, and he looks down, and he like does this like turn. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like it's a very specific,
Yeah.
and so I'm imagining him doing that as he entered the scene. I don't remember what you're talking about, but I can imagine him doing it.
Yeah, I don't know because I've never spoken to Adam Sandler or Paul Thomas Anderson about it, but I don't know who to give majority of the credit to for his performance. I thought he was brilliant in it. In interviews, he'll always say that he didn't do anything and it was all Paul Thomas Anderson who directed it. So who knows really, but I just thought there's so many subtle little he has a lot of like quirks, like little hand gestures. And like you said, a lot of things where you can almost see in his brain where he's just unsure what he should do, what he should say, where he should go. He's just uncomfortable the whole time, which I think, like you said earlier, between the music and the camera framing and the acting, as a viewer, you're just anxious and uncomfortable both time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as an audience member, they're making you feel the way the Barry Egan, who's Adam Sandler's character, the way he's feeling inside his head. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. How it's almost like they were able, because to me, the movie's deeply psychological, and they're able to, without being explicit about it, but across various tools, communicate exactly what you said, what he's thinking, what he's experiencing without being painfully literal. Do you know what I mean?
Without him having to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what is it? Meisner says a pound. I have the book. He says something like something amount of words is worth a pound of behavior. So you can say, and I'm messing up, but the idea is you can say all the things or you can just show it.
Right.
And showing it is much more powerful than I am angry, I am sad, I am a man.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Show it.
Mm-hmm.
So describe how have you come to be an assistant director? What's your path been like?
Let's see.
And is that predominantly how you define yourself today?
Interesting. My job, my career right now, my paying role is as an assistant director. But I also at the same time am a filmmaker because I make my own, when I write and direct and make my own small indies and short films and things like that. So I've been doing both simultaneously. But yeah, I think it was somewhere in high schoolish, maybe junior year of high school. I took a film class in high school. I was always loved movies, always inspired by movies. And I think something just clicked high school, and I just decided that's the path I wanted to explore going into college. And that's what I wanted to do, is just get into filmmaking. And when you're younger, you don't really understand exactly all the roles and what it takes. And so everyone just says, I want to be a director. I want to be an actor. I want to be a director or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know all the other roles that, and there's so many. So anyways, I went to school. I majored in communications, focusing on video and film production. It was not a film school, so it was very basic and minimal education I got. And also at the time, it was right on the verge of stepping into the digital world. So my first couple of years of college, we were like using VHS cameras with the big things with the tapes. And we were transitioning from linear editing to non-linear editing, and all like new softwares were starting to come out. So we were learning that. So By the time I got to my senior year, we were just fully pushing into digital. So really, when I graduated college, anything that I had learned was not really going to be much use to me anyways.
How does that feel to come out of college? We have this idea that you want to go down a certain career trajectory,
Yeah.
and you've just, I imagine, spent all this money, and the last 4 years of what you've learned. At
Yeah.
the very end, you start to learn what you possibly will be using. How did that feel?
It's interesting because even though I knew that's what I wanted to do and that's what I was studying in school, I don't think I really had the full drive to get into the industry. I thought it was cool. I liked it. It was fun. But I was also very just, if I don't do it, I don't do it. So I didn't really have that drive at the time because I graduated and I ended up for 15 years doing everything else except filmmaking or anything in the video. So I had many other jobs and many other careers and things. I never even really thought about it. Um, I always still had a love for movies, and I did eventually get into kind of like I always had a camcorder, and I always would make like funny little videos with my friends, and we would shoot little, I guess you can call them little short films at the time. I even did a few like weddings for friends where I would be like their videographer for a super budget and put it together.
$100, for $100, I will shoot your
Yeah.
wedding.
Honestly, just feed me and give me a couple pieces of the cake, and we're good.
You're a good friend because the weddings are a lot of work.
Oh, I know.
So
Expensive.
much work and so much expectation.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah, no, I know. I was very upfront. Listen, I'll be happy to do it for you, but just know what you're getting. Yeah.
Let's lower these expectations. You'll be given a final product.
Yeah.
You'll have a memory of this. That's what I can promise.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how did you end up going from, so it sounds like you graduate school with varying degrees of experience. Now stepping into digital, you were at the point where things were crossing over into new media. And then for 15 years, you do almost nothing related to film.
Yeah.
Maybe shoot some weddings, do some short films, do things with your friends.
Yeah.
What shifted for you? Because now professionally as an AD, what shifted for you to step into, like, where was the change?
You know what? There was just a moment where I was still very unsure what I was doing with my life. Like I said, I was just floating between different careers. I was trying different things that I was interested in, but I still hadn't landed at that time on anything that I knew was going to be my full-time role going forward. So I was getting ready to move. I was living in Connecticut at the time, and I just was ready for a change. I wanted a new, just different. And I had this dream and this goal of always making it to Hawaii. And I was getting ready to move to Hawaii. I was probably 2 months away from just pulling the trigger and just going. I was starting to set things. I had a friend or two that was there, and I was going to just crash with them, and I was going to bartend and just figure it out. I was like, what do I have to lose? I'm just going to go figure it out. So before I did that, I had another friend who was living in Georgia, friend that I grew up with, her family had been living here for years. She said, hey, before you go all the way to the other side of the country and spend all that money in Hawaii, why don't you come stay with me for a week or two in Georgia and check out the film scene here, because it's starting to really explode. It's getting big. I have a couple connections. I can steer you in the right direction. Why don't you just check it out? If you're just looking for a change of scenery, you never know. I said, all right, I will take you up on that offer. I came down, stayed with her for a week, her family, and I applied to be a background extra for a couple of things that we're filming here at the time. And ridiculously easily, like within a day or two, I was hired to work a couple of days on, I think it was the new Black Panther movie at the time.
Really?
And then a movie called Logan Lucky,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe something else. The Walking Dead. So in 2 weeks' time, just working as a background extra, I was able to get on these big, massive sets and see everything up close and personal. And I was, okay, I'm sold. I'm sold. Let me do it. So I got my stuff, packed up my car. I just drove my car down to Georgia, left my family, friends, everything, stayed with her again until I figured everything out. But I started out as a background extra. So just that was my foot in the door to just get on set and then see all the different departments and different roles that are within making shows and films. And then I was able to just network from there, make connections, which is the name of the game. Yeah.
I often hear people talk about when people speak about film, TV, Hollywood, they talk about it from the lens of breaking into the industry. It's like this common phrase, and it's visual, right? When you imagine breaking into something, if I'm breaking into your house, if I'm breaking into your car,
Yeah.
there's a specific connotation with a phrase like that. Why do you think people maintain the sentiment that you have to break into this industry?
I feel like that really only applies to actors, writers, producers, directors. I feel like
That's a
those
good
are the
amount of
biggies.
people.
Those are like, there's so many other roles and jobs that you don't need to break into anything to get those jobs. And you could be a very important person working on a movie that majority of the public don't know who you are and what you're doing, but you're a crucial part to the filmmaking process, and you don't really have to break into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel if you're a lead actor or an actor that gets that one role that makes them popular and puts them over the top, that's their breakout role. That's them breaking into the industry. Or their writer that's been writing scripts forever and trying to get finally one of his movies made, and finally a big studio picks up that script. Now they've finally broken into the industry. It's like that big moment.
Do you
What I do
feel?
is, go ahead.
Go on. No, you go on.
No, for me and for my position, a lot of positions, it's just like anything else where you just start at the ground and you just work your way up, and there's levels and there's positions and you get promotions, and you can't really skip that
Mm-hmm.
process.
So starting at the bottom, working your way up. I spoke to a DP recently who his experience in becoming a DP, he started off working in, he was doing, I think, was it lighting and electrical? He started off wasn't
Right.
touching cameras, any of that. He started to go to school for that and ended up leaving. And he got most of his initial experience through working on student films with his friends that were at these major film schools in California that he had dropped out of. So he was able to build his experience in that space, learning without having to pay the price tag, which I thought he pulled the Steve Jobs, right? He didn't, if you're familiar with Steve Jobs' story, he dropped out of school, but he was still attending classes
Yeah.
and building different things with fellow students. So I'm curious, describe 3 strengths that make a great assistant director.
Organization. You need to be able to organize things in your head and physically, because with an assistant director, there's actually a lot of paperwork and scheduling and planning and documents and things like that. Delegating, because you have a whole team around you and below you that you need to be able to know their strengths and weaknesses and delegate to make sure that the big picture, the big job gets done in the right way. You have to trust those people. And I would say just overall temperament. You got to have a lot of patience, but you have to also be able to motivate and push people along, because you're always working within a time frame, and time equals money. So you're always on a very tight schedule. You're always trying to make your day, which means you're trying to get everything that was scheduled to be filmed and accomplished that day. You're trying to make sure that all happens within that time frame. And you're dealing with tons and tons of people. You're like as an assistant director, you're like the management of the crew. So you're the one that's connecting all the departments together through communication, making sure everyone's on the same page, everyone knows what we're doing at the same time. And you just have a lot of different personalities on set, a lot of different people, bosses and people that are brand new. And you just have to be able to, stay calm, but stay pushing everyone and motivating everyone and dealing with all those personalities. So if you're not respected on set, the crew is not going to care what you're telling them, what you're asking them to do. So
Have you experienced that before, where you've been on set and maybe was not trying to lead and was ineffective.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I've seen it lots of times. Yeah, and sometimes there's some ADs out there that just have reputations for just being not liked. They're like bulldogs on set where they're just barking and yelling, and a lot of them are like an old school mentality. And the world's a little bit more sensitive these days. See as much of that. But yeah, I've worked with people that the crew just does not respect, and they'll have arguments all the time. And it slows down the whole day and it changes the mood and the rest of the crew and just don't want to be there. So,
I can imagine that that would be who hires the assistant director?
so there's three levels to the assistant director. There's a first, we always just say AD, it's just the short terms. There's a first AD, a key second AD, and depending on where you are, like in New York, it's different. In Atlanta and in California and other regions, it's different. But here in Atlanta, then we have a second AD. So you always have at least those three positions: first AD, key second AD, and then a second AD. In New York, I believe they have a third AD in Canada as well. But and then sometimes, depending on what we're filming, we have additional ADs that come in and help and run different parts, base camp or with background. So, anyways, usually the director has their first AD that they like to work with or that they've worked with before. So a lot of times the director will bring in the first AD. If not, then you have producers or production managers that will help assist in bringing in a first AD that maybe they've had experience working with. And then usually that first AD has a key second AD that's their go-to person or that they've worked with in the past that's available. They'll bring in that person. And then between the two of them, they'll interview or they'll bring in the next one down, which is the second AD. And then from there, they have all of the production assistants. So the production assistants and then those AD tiers, that makes up the AD department. So the whole assistant director department are those tiers of ADs and then a whole gang of production assistants.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say are the main differences between the AD team and the director?
So the director's just focused on the actors, the script, and the scenes and the shots, making sure that their creative process, that's all they're focused on. The ADs are focused on the logistics, the safety, and the communication between all the other departments. So we're focused on more like just managing and making sure everything gets done, less of a creative mind. We do have our time, our moments where we're able to step in and be creative, usually with like background extras. But we usually don't step on the toes of any of the creative. We can give suggestions based on, hey, the location says we're not allowed to do this, but we can do this, and we can offer suggestions to help solve problems. But it's more kind of managerial than it is creative.
Mm-hmm. You had shared in your Threads bio, it says, but I'm really just a movie lover and aspiring filmmaker of my own. I've directed multiple short films. I wrote my last two, earning me an award for a best short film. Congrats on the award.
Thanks.
What types of stories do you want to tell?
You know what? When it comes to me, when I'm writing and when I think about making short films or movies, I'm just like a kid at heart still. There's a lot of people that are writing stories and telling stories that relate to certain people or connect on a personal level with issues that are going on in the world or whatever the case may be. But I can go back to as a kid when I'm 80s watching Neverending Story and Princess Bride and Labyrinth and all these kind of fun fantasy.
Labyrinth is creepy. I just watched it the other day and I was like, I could not finish Labyrinth.
Wait, you watched it for the first time?
Yeah, I didn't know what this was. Watched it. Child Bride, I could not. And she was so whiny. She complained like I only got 30 minutes into it, 20 minutes. And that song, the opening number, I can hear it, but I don't.
Yeah. Oh, it's David Bowie. And he's very creepy in it. But yeah, it's interesting because I wonder if I would have watched that for the first time as an adult, how different Because I watched it as a kid when I had no idea what was really going on, and I've seen it a
Yeah.
100 times. So it's interesting. I wonder if I would have saw it for the first time as an adult. But
Yes. I didn't finish it. I didn't finish it. But
okay.
The Princess Bride, I
Yeah,
watched for the first time a few years ago, and that's a great film. Never ending story I saw as a kid. The one with the big white dog thing, right? Like flying,
yeah,
never
it's
ending story.
like a flying dragon dog. Yeah,
Yeah, and isn't he in a library? Like he's locked in a library reading books, and then it transports him. But you
yeah.
were saying that you're a kid at heart. I had to say something about Labyrinth because it was another movie recommended on that same thread where you
Uh,
recommended Punch Drunk Love. This person recommended Labyrinth.
yeah,
They told me it was a Jim Henson masterpiece. I love puppets.
yeah.
It was dark.
Interesting. It's one of my favorites for sure. It's almost like a comfort movie for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I could maybe there are things that are nostalgic for us that
Yeah,
I think the nostalgia is comforting. And if we saw it from a different perspective or at a different time, those same things don't necessarily bring us the same comfort. So I'm wondering if it's also
yeah,
nostalgic. And that's okay. We can disagree
definitely.
on Labyrinth.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll give you Labyrinth. You can have that.
yeah.
But you were saying that you're a kid at heart and people are making movies about specific people, but your mind, you go back to watching movies in the 80s, Labyrinth, Princess Bride.
Yeah, the last couple of things that I've written and short films I've made are like these suspenseful thrillers, psychological thrillers, just this whole mystery, that like magical wonder of being a kid where you don't really know where the lines cross of what's reality and what's the impossible or what is possible. So I'm still finding my niche. I'm still finding my groove as far as and I don't know if I have to really be locked into any specific style, but I found myself leaning towards these fantasy, thriller, mystery, slow, suspenseful moods, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where's the tension for you in your work?
Where's the intention?
Tension
Where's the tension?
as a storyteller.
I really don't know. They've all come from different. I don't really know I don't know if it comes from anywhere, a deep place. I think they're just an idea just pops in my brain and I just think it's fun and interesting. And then I just go with it. They're not
Mhm.
personal. None of them have any personal connection to anything that I've gone through. So they're not like a story. They're not like my story.
Mhm. That's interesting. When I think about different things I've written and when I sit down, I almost wish I had more of that perspective or natural inclination to writing and making because everything that I seem to want to make or be drawn to making, which I think is interesting. You said you heard intention when I said tension, has such strong intentionality around it that it feels encased in something that inherently has high stakes because there's so much intention. So as opposed to having an idea that pops into my head that I think something could be really cool to explore, it tends to be, yeah, there's levels of intention behind it. I'm actually practicing doing what you're talking about. Having ideas that pop in, I do musical improv, and that's a great way to hone that skill. Are you familiar with what musical improv is?
No, I am.
Let me illuminate you. Musical improv is where you more or less you make musicals on the spot. Like improv, someone will throw out a suggestion for you, throw out a suggestion. This is name anything.
We're doing it right now.
I'm not going to do it, but we're going through the process. Yeah.
Wait, you mean just like a word or
A word. We just need a word. Yeah.
all right, elephants.
Elephants. I have my team. I have the pianist or the group of musicians. Welcome to Elephant, the musical. And for 20 to 30 minutes, we break out and make an improvised musical.
Oh,
with song and lyrics. And if we're really on the lock, there's harmony. Can't always guarantee that. Maybe there's some rhyming. And that's a great way to be more spontaneous. You have to be. The art of improv.
that what you just explained to me gives me anxiety. The
Yeah, a
idea,
lot of people it does.
like, the idea of just improv and being able to like write things out and plan it out perfectly is like, that scares me. Yeah. I'm a planner.
Yeah. I love improvisation. Musical improv is, in fact, even when I'm writing, so I went to form a writing group, different people in New York, and I realized I'm like, I don't like to sit down and have these long, drawn out sessions for writing. It doesn't come to me like that. In fact, when I write, it's often I'll hear a song in my head musically, I'll workshop something out loud, or there's an improvisational quality. There's a certain amount of planning, but then it's improvised, and I'm playing with the idea. So having that balance between structure and fluidity. And musical improv has that because the structure is the music. You have it's not like non-musical improv where there's just a time limit. This is you have a count of music. So there's quite literally the inability to like you have a beat. You
Right.
have a certain thing that you can accomplish in quite literally a count of time. And it's this beautiful communication between the musical director, the pianist who's leading, and everyone's communicating, and you're yes anding 100 different things. It's the most joyful place on earth, but I can see why it would give people raging anxiety.
Yeah. It does sound fun if it was just going to be for fun and you knew that nobody was going to really be watching or see it. But
I could get that.
yeah.
It's when I heard you talk about being a kid at heart and that you didn't say childlike place, but that to me, musical improv is, it was funny because I looked up one of the dreams I have that I'm working on is to write a musical. And I'm in New York. I'd come back from living abroad. And I'm like, there's got to be something that teaches you how to write a mini musical. I just want to be around people doing this. And I discovered musical improv. And I said, fuck it. I already do this on my own. I do this at home. I do this with friends. Let's enlist ourselves. And yeah.
Fun.
So that's where I have more of an idea pops into my head and
Yeah.
let's roll with it.
Okay.
I'm curious, what are your aspirations for the future? What are you working on?
So I look at my path as two like simultaneous lines. So I have my job, my career, my like paying and security job, which is still within the film industry, which is working as an AD right now. And then I have my like creative side where I write and have been making my own, short films and little indies whenever I can find the actual time and the creative energy to put into that. I don't necessarily I know how the industry works, and if for some reasons or somehow I make a short film or I write something and that gets more eyes on it, or someone wants to get behind it with some more money, and maybe there's something gets traction, and maybe I can break into the industry that way through writing or directing some type of film. That would be amazing, but I know that's a long shot. Doesn't mean I'm going to ever stop doing that. But at the same time, I can work in the professional industry as an assistant director, and that's how I make money, and that's how I keep my connections, and I keep learning about filmmaking. So I separate the two, but I'm doing both at the same time. I just finished a short film that I filmed last year, almost exactly a year ago, while we had that huge strike that was going on in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I put together I have a feature script that I've been working on for maybe a year and a half now, 2 years. And we were all doing nothing during the strike, and I just had an itch to make something, to shoot something. So I decided to make a proof of concept. So I don't know if you're familiar with that.
For people who
Um,
aren't familiar with it, why don't you share what it is?
it's basically if you have a big idea, usually it's it's if you have a feature script or something like that, and you don't have the funds, you don't have the capability and people to actually go out and shoot in a giant feature film, what you could do is you can take one scene or a part of a scene or just a couple ideas from your movie and put something together that's 2 to 3, 5, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever you want to do. That basically is an example of what you're capable of, what your story is going to be like. And it's used as a selling tool. So you can take that, you can take your script, you can take whatever ideas you have to people, or you can, for me, I made this proof of concept based off this other idea, and I'm going to share it. I'll put it on social media. I'm going to get it hopefully into a few festivals and more eyes get on it. And everyone will be aware that it is a proof of concept based off of a feature. So if anyone is interested, everyone likes the idea and likes what I've done, it's just a helpful tool to get funding or extra help towards making your ultimate bigger goal. Something like I can't film a feature film right now. I would love to, but I just can't.
And
So I finished.
Go on.
So I finished that 2 days ago. Yeah, we filmed it last year, but I finished all the post-production and the editing and all that. That's exciting. I'm going to release that in a few weeks. It'll be out for Halloween. It's a Halloween-themed short film. So I'll be putting that out there in a few weeks. So that has been fun. And then I've just been working. The industry is super slow right now, but I've just been picking up work here and there and just hustling.
Mm-hmm. You just completed the proof of concept. I want to be
Correct.
clear.
Yes.
Got it. And
Correct.
you're going to submit the proof of concept to different festivals.
Yeah. So the way I did the proof of concept, which is not always how it's done, is I made it into a short film. So a lot of times
That's
a
what I
proof of
thought.
concept isn't actually a full story. It's just like a slice or a couple
It's like a
ideas put
sample
together.
taste.
So I took that concept. I actually made a prequel to my story. So I made a prequel and I made it so that it is a complete story. So it works as an isolated short film that I can submit to film festivals. And if nothing ever happens with it, I still have a fully completed story within this short film.
That was smart.
Yeah,
That's smart.
The idea just happened. I think I was watching some videos on proof of concepts and I heard someone say something about prequel, and immediately like the whole story came to me because I know what my feature story is. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm going to do. Because I can make that just in a couple scenes. And I knew that I would write it in a way that it was just a full story within itself. So yeah, it's a proof of concept, but it's also just its own short film, but it lends all towards the same characters and same storyline that's within this bigger feature that I have working.
Now the wheels in my brain are turning.
Yeah. The whole world's going to steal my idea.
Yes, when the whole world listens to this podcast, they will.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to steal this idea. No, it's a fantastic idea. You're taking my original background. I've had many variations of a career, but for a long time, and still I'll work with this with marketing, branding, and sales. And so it's brilliant. You took a piece of marketing, a piece of sales material, and you've converted it into an amuse-bouche of a story, and then you get greater reach and even greater credibility and connections. You're leveraging different channels that you wouldn't have had access to if you just kept it as a proof of concept. So,
Right.
fan of this
Yeah.
idea. And I don't know about other people stealing it, but I'm sure I'll be using it.
You have permission. Yeah.
Asterisk credit at the end. I'll give you credit for providing this idea. And you said that you're coming out with this short film for Halloween. Where will people be able to find that, and where can people find you?
I'm going to have it on YouTube. I'll put it on Vimeo. Those are usually my two go-tos for anything that I release on social media. I've been promoting it on Instagram, and there's an Instagram page for it. I'm still trying to decide how I want to do a physical premiere somewhere locally here in Atlanta so that cast and crew we can all watch it together for the first time. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that in the next few weeks, and then I will definitely have it available to watch before Halloween. The name of the short film is called Jack's Lantern. So I'll have it on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll see it on Threads as well. I will post it on Threads.
Threads is such a niche, but highly accessible social media platform in this moment, on
Yeah.
this day. I don't know when people listen to this in the future. I can't guarantee that Threads will still be as such,
Right. Yeah.
but it is one of the easiest platforms I have found to connect with people, have real conversations, and people and professionals are so generous with their insights. So I've had amazing conversations. And that's wonderful that you're on Threads and YouTube and Instagram. But what's your Instagram handle? Where can people go and search you to find these other things?
Hmm. I don't even know. What is my Instagram? What is
Okay. We can include it. I'll ask you to send a bio. We can include this
Sure.
in there. And people can also look you up by name. That's funny.
Yeah. I believe it's Mike period C, like the C, SEA. I believe that is my Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you for your time in this incredible interview. And I'm sure the last interview I did with a DP, I got a variety of messages for people saying how useful it was, how helpful it was. And I know that this is going to be inspiring to people, especially now, as you said, in film industry and TV, et cetera. I think people are at a crossroads and looking and redefining themselves, reinventing themselves. And I feel like this is going to give them a bit of inspiration and a bit of insight. So thank you for your time.
You got it.
That's a wrap, guys. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Vocal Liberation. You could be anywhere and you're here with us today. Thank you for that. Your support means the world to me and I don't take it for granted. Click the follow button and leave a review to help us spread the love with vocal liberation. If you're looking for support to free your voice and do the work that you are really here to do in the world, apply for a complimentary call with me using the link below.